Hi, Honest Discussioner here. Today we're going to be talking about abortion. Now, abortion is separated into two camps, and you have to be part of one or the other. You have to be either pro-life, meh, or pro-choice, meh. Now, which side do you fall on? Because it can only be one, right? No. See, here's the thing. We're never going to get anywhere with abortion, not the way we've all been talking about it. Why? Because we have a false dichotomy between pro-life and pro-choice, when in reality that's not how it works. I mean, we wouldn't say, are you pro-schools or are you pro-hospitals? Which one? Yeah, it's either one or the other. We don't do that because whether or not you're for schools doesn't necessarily say whether or not you are for our hospitals. And really, in reality, most people are for both. And this is how it works with pro-life and pro-choice. Believe it or not, most people really are both. Because what does the pro-life say? We shouldn't murder. So, pro-choicers, are you going to say that they're wrong, that murder is okay? Oh, so I guess you are pro-life, unless you say it's okay to murder. Now, of course, you've got the pro-choice side saying that it isn't right to tell people what they should do with their bodies. So, pro-life people, is that okay? Can we tell people what to do? Is personal freedoms not important? Is it okay for the government to have control over your body? No? Oh, so I guess you're really pro-choice. See, here's the thing. Both sides are really shouting out down their own arguments at the same time, and they're both right. What they're not doing is addressing the other side's arguments. The pro-lifers just talk about how murdering is wrong, and the pro-choicers only talk about how choice is a right. Right is a life, choice is a right. Yes, you're both right. Now you're also obviously both wrong, because you're not taking into account the other person's position. So of course that leads us to, how do we take into account the other person's position? And this is what the issue should be. We can't talk about whether or not we're pro-life or pro-choice anymore. We have to talk about whether or not we're pro-abortion or anti-abortion. No more double pros. When we really get down to it, what we are talking about is life. And that should be what the debate is about, because no one is really for murder, and those that are, we really don't seem to care about too much, do we? So the question isn't whether or not we should be pro-life or pro-choice, but when does life start? Now, I'm sorry, religious people and pro-lifers, as you like to call yourselves, and I'm generalizing here with that label, but life doesn't begin at conception. Because it's actually really not life we're talking about, but humanity. These cells on my skin are alive, and yet I'm killing them right now. Am I murdering life by scraping off the skin cells on my arm? Should I be considered a murderer if I do that to someone else's arm? Am I a murderer every time I accidentally bump into someone? Because that does kill cells that are technically alive. So it isn't really life that we're talking about. It's humanity. When does humanity begin? And I would argue it does not begin at conception. I would argue it begins when your central nervous system becomes activated, when you can start dreaming, when you can feel pain. I'm not exactly sure the moment that happens. I'm pretty sure we can nail that down scientifically. But that is where I stand on abortion. Before whatever is growing inside a woman's womb, or in a test tube, or whatever, before that becomes a human being, then killing it is not really murder, because you're not killing a life. You're just killing cells. Afterwards, pro-choice people, I'm sorry. But what you do to your body is okay, so long as it doesn't affect someone else's body. And as soon as that baby, that thing, becomes a person, as soon as it becomes human, then yes, it is killing it. Now, of course, when you're talking about a mother's life versus the child's life, if it's going to end the mother's life, then since the mother is housing the child, I would say the mother's life takes priority. But unless that's the case, once that child becomes a human being, then it is murder. And sorry, pro-lifers, before then, it isn't. Plan B is not murder. Abortion, contraceptives are not murder. And once it becomes a life, once it becomes a human life and not just a mass of cells, once it starts being able to feel and dream, which does happen pretty early on in the womb, I think after a couple of weeks, yeah, then you're right, then it is murder. And this is what I believe we should be discussing. When does humanity begin? And once we have that solved, that's when we have abortion solved. So that's about it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have a nice day. Honest Discussioner, out.